The Mavs obviously handling their business. They've been a good-looking basketball team over the last month, a really good-looking basketball team. In fact, a lot of people looking at them as a dangerous team. I know Tim Legler has used that name, or that word rather, quite frequently with these Dallas Mavericks. So 877-881-1053, that's the Frankel Frankel injury attorney text line. What matchup do you want to see the Mavs play the most in the first round? There's some teams that are most likely at this time. Obviously, the Mavs currently sitting 5th in the West, which would put them above the play-in race, which is great because they had sat in that play-in fray for a good amount of the season. And that would, currently have them playing, if the season ended today, the Los Angeles Clippers, who have a good 2-game lead ahead of the Mavericks, but also are pretty far out of that situation 1 through 3 that the Timberwolves, Nuggets, and Thunder seem to be passing back and forth. But of those teams, obviously we know the way that it seems to be leaning, and the probabilities are high that you face a particular team. But if you had an opportunity to choose, when we're talking about the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Clippers, maybe even the Suns or Pelicans if things go really haywire in these last few games, which of those do you view as the best, maybe the worst? Like, what are you looking at when it comes to first-round matchups? Because matchups, I feel like, are going to be key with the West being this stacked.
Yeah, so first thing I want to get off, and I've seen kind of this talk on Mavs Twitter and Twitter in general, is people like, oh, maybe we should lose this game in the late end so we play this team, or maybe we should, really try to win these two and then lose this one. It's like, the race is too tight to be playing that game.
Right.
I think the Mavs are playing too good of basketball. Just win obviously the most you can and get the highest seed possible and let it shake out how it shakes out. I do think the Dallas Mavericks, whoever they match up with in the first round, regardless of one team that I'll get to, I think they have a good chance to win that series and be highly competitive in it. So I don't think it's where they're like, they only have one way of winning and they got to match up against this team or it's go home time. So I wanted to get that out first. And then secondly, I think the Mavs are really dangerous, man. I think there is a lot of teams that me and you are going to name, and some people are going to text them where it's like, yep, I'd give them a chance in that series, or I'd pick them to win that series. I'll just go and get the easy one out the way. The team that I do not want to see is the Denver Nuggets. I don't think that really takes much explanation. They've been the best team of the last couple of years.
Yeah, let's go ahead and explain it then.
They've got Nikola Jokic, who is a great passer, right at the top of the key, and that's something that the Mavs haven't been great at. Teams that really are really good at swinging the ball around. We saw when we played the Boston Celtics, we played the Indiana Pacers. These teams that can push it and have bigs that are really good at passing and that can stretch the floor. When you saw that Pacers game, Miles Turner tear you up. Well, Jokic does that at an even better clip. Now, did you play really good against them when they were here? Yes. Do I think that if you were to match up with them, am I just going to pencil in you're going to lose? No. Is it the team I least want to face in the first round? Yes. And Jamal Murray healthy, we all know how much of a playoff riser he is. And I think him and Kyrie could have their battles and go back and forth. But the problem is the Mavs are really good at when there is one weak defender or one weak offensive player, kind of putting Luka, Kyrie over there and kind of isolating them. We saw when they played Oklahoma City, what they did against Josh Giddey. But the problem...
Oh, you mean like defensively having a weak spot that you don't have to put attention on and utilize that asset to help you elsewhere.
Correct.
Got you.
And while I think Luka and Kyrie have gotten better at defense, I don't exactly think, hey, I want you to clamp up their best player on defense. And when you play the Denver Nuggets, they don't really have a weak spot on offense. Mm-hmm. They got guys that can shoot. They got guys that can create. And I could see a guy like Michael Porter Jr. kind of giving you a little bit of fits.
Michael Porter Jr.
And then Nikola Jokic, we all know what he does, possibly the MVP of the league. Now,
yeah, that's a team that does not shoot a lot of threes, but when they do it efficiently, and they can work in the mid-range, which feels like a place against these Mavs on the court defensively where they are susceptible.
Yeah, because I think they're decent at closing out and whatever, but once you do that first pump fake and you make them really start with like at a high level, guys. I'm not just talking about when you're playing the Bulls and some of these, I'm talking about these high-level teams when they're really moving the ball around and they're one dribble pull-up or one dribble making a guy step up, and now MPJ and Aaron Gordon is back cutting for an alley-oop, and I don't know if we're there yet.
And I think on top of that, like the defense that the Mavs have is now predicated on there is a backstop. There is a wall back there. We're going to funnel you into that backstop. But what happens if you funnel them in, but they get a shot up before they get to that backstop? I think that's where it gets a little interesting.
That's my only team that I do not want to play.
Okay, so who do you want to play? Because we already got a suggestion on the text line.
So the team that I think I would feel the best appetite to play, wait, that was a good word right there.
I think that works. Yeah, for sure.
I think it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they are young, and SGA is an MVP candidate. He might even win it. They got talent all over the place. their biggest deficiency, and even Oklahoma City fans will tell you, they play small. They do not have a prominent big down there. Chet Holmgren is really good. He's not exactly the beefiest dude in the gym. And I just feel like that would be a Daniel Gafford takeover series. I think Jalen Williams, and they got some different guys they can throw at Luka to give him fits. I think they do a decent job at that. I just feel like at that point, playoff experience would come into fruition. You would see Luka knowing the different nodes and buttons to push in a playoff series and how to get at them. And I think SGA and those guys, they'd win a couple and they'd get up and down and it'd be a competitive series. But I would feel really, really good because of the size. And I don't feel like they can. I feel like Josh Giddey, he's played a little bit better last week or two, but I feel like he's still an offensive liability. You cannot play in a playoff series where teams are game planning for you. So I think out of all the teams I'm looking at kind of in the top 8, I think I feel really good if we were to match up against the Oklahoma City Thunder in a 7-game series.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially when you talk about the strength of this team has now become their size.
Yep.
Defensively and offensively. They have done one of the reasons why they've been able to win games without knocking down threes is that they can get points in the paint. And you're going to put a lot of stress on Chet Holmgren to show up in a big way. I think that this team has grown up in quite a way, and it's been good. But like they like getting downhill, they like scoring at the paint. If all your buckets are coming with Daniel Gafford contesting them, good luck. Yeah. Good luck in that. And so they're a talented team, and I think the Josh Giddey thing might be kind of minimized in the postseason because I think that as you narrow your rotation, they might play him less. You might see more Gordon Hayward, that type of thing, and he can score, he can shoot, and so I think that might switch that.
Lu Dort's a good one. I didn't mention is a really good defender. Lucas talked about him. He's like, that's one of the toughest guys that's guarded.
So I don't think that'd be a cakewalk, but I think you're right. I think you match up well against Oklahoma City, especially with the new look way that your Mavs is set up. How about this on the text line from the 817? They said, "Let me get the Clippers. Playoff Harden, please." Now, I know that there's absolutely that narrative, and I'm not saying narrative to try and wipe that away because he has not played well in the postseason. That is just objectively true over the entirety of his career at this point. Do you feel like that is the major narrative when you talk about, or the major sticking point when you talk about these Clippers in the postseason? What are you looking at in a potential matchup there? Because as of right now, that is the most likely one.
Yeah, so the Clippers, I mean, of course the narrative is there. My biggest thing is they don't look like they have continuity. I mean, Paul George was just asked about it a couple days ago. It might have even been this morning when I saw just like, what's going wrong with this team? And he's like, that's a question for the coach. What's going wrong with James, with Harden? That's a question for the coach. Next question, like, they don't seem to be on the same page. Kawhi Leonard's been in and out of the lineup the last couple of weeks with some lower body injuries.
Yeah,
so
the knee soreness.
I'm just like, they don't seem, and I say seem as outside looking in, like a team that like loves playing with each other. When I watch the Mavs, even in a loss, they're like, they look like they're enjoying each other. They understand that there's a process to this. The guys seem all bought in. I don't really get that feel when I watch Clippers games or kind of hear things from the outside. So I think that's a team that you could break down mentally. Physically, they got ball players. Like they still got all NBA guys. Paul George, one of my favorite players ever, still a really good player. But they just don't seem to always. They don't always seem to be on the same page. And I think Zubac is a guy they've shown frustration with when they throw the pass down low. He doesn't have the best hands. Is dropping the ball. So when you combine that with not playing well up into the playoffs, you already have a couple guys with stigmas for not playing well in the playoffs, and you already don't have that continuity. Then you play against a team that has playoff experience, playing against a team that has playoff caliber risers, and it is all the continuity. I feel like mentally you could get in their heads and really crush their spirits.
Really, for me, it's just I wonder if the Clippers would be consistent. If they're inconsistent, obviously, then it's just you need to win more of these games. But you mentioned they have ball players, and when they've been playing at their heights, and I know we could think of the time where they were playing extended at their height, maybe about 2 months ago.
Correct.
Recently, you've seen for relatively short stretches them playing at their heights, and really that is them moving the ball around. When you do that, and you still have the closers, as we've talked about, the closers that you have in Luka and Kyrie, they have closers in Paul George and Kawhi, and those are scary ones because they also can be lockdown players that give you fits. I don't love that as a matchup, not necessarily in that it's going to be a bad one, but the possibility of the high end of it is scary. No, I don't know that they get to the high end, though.
The high end is there, and I shared this the last time I think it was on the radio on Saturday or Friday or something like that. Did you know since the All-Star break that they've ranked 29th, and then I think they've evened out at like 27th defensive rating? Like they've been one of the worst defenses, which on paper you're like, what? They have Kawhi Leonard, they have Paul George, like they got good defenders. They should be a top 5, top 10. They are one of the worst defense, and it's not because they don't have the personnel. While Harden, Man, Zubac, do they play the best defense all the time? Maybe not. But just it doesn't seem like they're all on the same page. A lot of what we said about the Dallas Mavericks, where it's like they got some pieces, but they're not on the same page.
Real quick, before we move on, though, another thing that always I have a healthy respect for Tyronn Lue, their head coach, one of the best coaches in the league for my money. And so that gives me a little bit of, I don't know, pause is the right word.
I don't think it'd be a 4-game series. I think this would be a 6-7. Yeah.
But, I mean, still, I like what the Mavericks are doing right now. Yesterday, we talked to Tim Cato, the homie Tim Cato, the Athletic. And during the course of conversation, he threw out some things when it came to potential matchups that I found his perspective kind of interesting.
The answer is anybody but Denver. I think they have a very, at worst, a 50-50 shot against. Or right there. I mean, I think they want to avoid the Clippers, and I think they want to avoid Oklahoma City in the first round, just because Oklahoma City I think they have advantages against OKC, but that's a really good team, and they've proven that over and over again. So if they can get a Minnesota or a Pelicans, I think that's a better scenario for them, because I think this team should want to be playing deep into May. They've proven that they should be expecting that.
Well, it seems like me and Tim are on the same page.
But to some extent,
I'm joking.
You notice how the opposite of like OKC and the Clippers are the two teams that we were talking about that maybe are a nice match, and he's like, those are maybe the ones.
Timberwolves, man, because they have had you in the regular season. Now, I think it was the game like Luka and Kyrie were both out, and they kept it close until like the last 5 minutes with the backups where they were turning the ball over the Timberwolves left and right. So I really don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how to judge them. Cat has been out for an extended period of time. Is he going to come back?
Right.
Is Anthony Edwards just going to take over a playoff series? Is Gobert going to be a liability on defense?
Well, you ask, is he going to take over a playoff series? And here's the thing about that: we've seen him already do some variation of take over a playoff series. We know that was the team that gave the Nuggets their biggest test and challenge over their run last year. So there's that. In addition to it, what have we talked about? We just talked about the size is the Mavericks' benefit here.
Now you got Gobert down there.
They match the size, and you talk about you talk about Gobert getting played off the court. Context is necessary, because if you just say Gobert got played off the court, you would think it was because he was bad. No, it's matchup situations, and he gets played off the court when you are able to play small and drag him out of the paint.
See, I don't know if the Mavs can do that at a high level.
And I think we've all talked about the idea of the Mavs need to have that center on the court all the time. Well, if Gobert is on the court with that center now,
kind of equals out.
He can play where he wants to play, and now that allows them to play to their strengths. And they've been an incredible defensive team. The thing about it that I then question is, will the Timberwolves have the offense? And that ends up being. But Naz Reid has been great in those circumstances.
I don't know who.
Well.
I don't know who would guard him. PJ maybe. Like I don't even know how you match up. Like
it might be PJ.
It's just they're kind of a weird team where I think you make a great point. The offense, like we know Anthony Edwards going to give you 25, 30 probably in the playoffs. Cool. Outside of that, Nas getting hot here and there, like Conley, McDaniels. Like I feel better about the offensive output from the Mavs. I think that's pretty clear. But it's not like the Timberwolves don't play really good top 5 defense and have a defensive player of the year candidate and Rudy Gobert. And then also, I think when it comes to the playoffs, mentality is a big thing. And we've seen Anthony Edwards has that dog mentality, has that alpha mentality. Like, I'm going to play defense, offense, win us this game. So they're a team I'm a little weary of. I don't really know how to feel about them. The Pelicans is one I think most people would feel pretty good playing against the Pelicans. I think they're one of the weaker playoff teams right now.
I just feel like people don't know a lot about the Pelicans.
Brandon Ingram's been out the last week or two. Zion, we haven't seen him in a playoff series. What is he?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is the same thing happen? Do we build a wall? He's a really good playmaker and passer. What does he do out of it? Does CJ McCollum light it up? So they're one where I think most people, if you match up against the Pelicans, you're probably like, okay, that's not as scary as it could be. But they also can maybe get some team a run.
But I think that the encouraging thing about all this is, just like you said, just like Tim Cato said when we talked to him yesterday, the Mavericks, you don't hate any of these matchups. Even the Nuggets, it's just that's a tough one, right? Yeah. That's the one that you go, ooh, okay. But outside of that, any of these teams that you could even at the furthest reaches of your imagination match the Mavericks up with in the first round, they have a good chance of playing against. And that's a credit to Nico Harrison, and a credit to Jason Kidd, and a credit to the team on the floor for the efforts that they have given in making themselves more capable of contending over the since the trade deadline. So shout out to the Mavericks.